Hi guys, it's Steph from IDRIVEACLASSIC, and today I'm back in something I've never tested before. It's a Citroen, and it's a Citroen BX 16, which means we've got a 1.6 engine, and it's also a TRS, which means that it may not be top spec, but it's pretty close. I mean, we've even got electric windows. So in today's video, I'm going to show you around the outside of the car, bring you on the inside, show you what's under the bonnet, talk you through a little bit about the inside of the car as well, and then we're going to head out for a drive where I'll tell you what it's like to drive this amazing little French car. And yeah, I'm very excited to take you out. I've never done a Citroen before, so this is going to be all brand new to me. So let's head out for a drive now.
Today we're having an adventure in this absolutely awesome Citroen BX. So I saw this car for the first time in the summer and I wanted to get a review in then, but with everything so busy during show season and so many things on, we just didn't have time. So today I'm really excited to give you a tour around this car, take you on a drive and share my thoughts. So the Citroen BX was made from 1982 all the way through to 1994, so a considerable 12-year run. Now, whilst the hatchback was discontinued in 1993 for the Xantia, they continued making the estate until 1994. Now, despite the BX launching on the continent in 82, it didn't launch in the UK until late summer, well, August 1983, and was available at UK launch with a 1.3 and a 1.6 engine, although by 1986 these options had increased to include all the other engines they had. So the car was really popular in the UK and was the UK's best-selling diesel engine car from 1987 all the way through to 1991, and throughout its life, so throughout the full 12 years, 11, it was actually one of the most popular imported cars in the UK. So another little thing as we talk about this car and about its life, something else which I discovered whilst doing a little reading is that in Finland they created a bit of a strange BX which had an extended fiberglass roof, no rear seats, and was named the BX van. So this, a bit like the three-wheeler tax laws in the middle of last century in the UK, which really helped companies like Reliant, it was a bit of a bizarre one in the crazy world of vehicle taxing, and it was linked to the fact at the time in Finland that if you bought a van you paid considerably less registration tax in comparison to things like passenger cars. So this must have been quite a hot topic because a team set out to create the BX van by essentially taking a normal BX, chopping the roof off and plonking this kind of fiberglass box on top to alter the shape of the car so that it met the Finnish criteria of vans being at least 130 centimetres high and 2.5 metres cubed in cargo volume. And bizarrely it did really well, and over 2,000 sold. So with this in mind, and especially the UK popularity, you'd expect there to be loads left on the road in the UK. However, a bit of a browse on howmanyleft.com, which should always be taken with a pinch of salt because it's not always exactly right. It would suggest that there's less than 1,000 left on the road. And unfortunately, with continued low purchase price, scrappage schemes, engines being a good donor for other cars, and people buying them as cheap runarounds, which can be scrapped at the first sign of trouble, these eye-catching French cars are very much at risk of becoming extinct in the next 10 years or so, especially if people don't recognise what they're actually worth. Now, on the face of this is a very French car. However, the designer behind it is actually Italian, which doesn't surprise me because the design of this car seems very well thought out inside and out. It's economic in terms of weight, which I'll discuss later in the video, and it feels quite modern compared to some of the other cars that would have been around at the same time. Now, the chap that designed this, Marcello Gandini, a designer, was so highly regarded. He was nominated for Car Designer of the Century, and he worked with people like Lamborghini, Maserati, and he worked on cars such as the Innocenti Mini, Lancia Stratos, and the Renault Super 5. Now, we've had a little look around the outside, we've had a look at the inside. I'm going to talk you through a little bit more about this amazing car. With this amazing Citroen BX, I had to show you how the suspension worked. So basically it's a hydropneumatic system which was designed by a chap called, and apologies on the pronunciation, Paul Magers, and it was basically seen as being so effective and smooth, it was even later fitted to some Rolls-Royce and Maserati. Now, for a brief overview of the technical side of it, it's a belt-driven pump off the engine. It's kind of the same way that your alternator in your modern car would run, or if you've updated your older car from a dynamo, your alternator. Now, the system is only pressurised when the pump is running, which is why the suspension drops when it's not in use and then comes back up again when the engine is running. So there are different manual settings. So like if you needed to go higher, as we've just seen, that's for changing a tyre and so on. So I've asked Jordan to demonstrate, and I'm not disappointed. So let's have a chat about the weight of this car and why plastic is fantastic.
Now, one of the super interesting things about this Citroen is the fact that there is quite a lot of plastic, but plastic where you don't expect it to be. So not only is the bonnet plastic, the boot is plastic, and the bumpers as well, which means even though it's quite a big car, it doesn't actually weigh any more than a Morris Minor. So now that I've given you a little bit of factoids, let's jump in the car and we'll have a look around the inside, and I'll talk you through a few things on the inside too. Now I wanted to show you guys the dash, so I've just popped the key in so that you can see a couple of the lights there. So if you can see the stop light, that's pretty much like a modern check engine light, which I think is fantastic forward thinking. And then if you see over here, you've got your little exclamation mark in the circle. That just tells you that the fluid is low. You need to get that all checked. So it's pretty straightforward, as you would expect, but there's a couple of quirky bits on the dash that I cannot wait to show you. Now, you know me and dash panels, I love something a bit different and exciting. So when I got hold of this, I said to Jordan, what is this? So let me just point it out to you. What is this? Well, let me show you. I'm going to put the ignition on. Now I'm going to open the door. Now, I don't know if you can see that there. I'm just going to come in. You can see that the door's open. How clever is that? I love quirky stuff like that. And I've just opened the back door there. Now, as well, let me show you this. So this is just for your coins. So watch this when I press it. How handy is that? I thought that was a bit of genius, to be honest. And of course, an ashtray, because it is a French car after all, cigarette lighter, and the rest looks pretty normal. And then I'm going to bring you down to this. So this is a little bit different. Aftermarket stereo there, but I guess not everybody wants to hang on to cassette tape live. And then you've got this very odd gear stick. So this was put in by one of the few previous owners. It's been on the car since the 90s, and Jordan said to me, you know, it's not original, but I'm going to keep it because it's part of the car's history, which is quite a sweet little addition, really. As you know, I love a little quirky feature, and look at this sunroof. It's electric, so I discussed that this wasn't bottom of the range, so it has something very exciting, which is this electric sunroof. So I'm going to pop the ignition on and watch this. So, well, hey. And we'll pull that back in. And as well, if you just want a little bit of air, let me show you. If you press back, just press that a little bit, you can get just a bit of a tilt as well. So let me see if I can show you there. So you can see there, the sunroof is just tilted open. So it's quite genius, really. Now you'll notice this panel is missing here, and that is because I have taken it off. Here's something I did earlier. Now, inside here, the panel that is missing off the roof is this thing here. That's a manual wind key. So if you have electronic gremlins, you've got a backup solution and you can get it back closed and you don't have to end up with wet hair. Fantastic, really. And as well as that, you've also got electric windows, which is quite fantastic, really. So I'll just show you those. Bit of stiff coming back up, and you've got this over here, which is your passenger side. I mean, how brilliant is that? Look, I'm easy to impress, but that has impressed me. And yeah, I think this Citroen's got a lot going on for it. It's an exciting little car, actually. Guys, it's one of my favourite bits of the video now. I'm going to start the car up. Now, I've been told I do need to give a bit of throttle as I go for it. So if anybody's saying, oh God, you didn't need to do that, well, I think I kind of do. So let's get her started up. I've already heard her running. She hasn't got a back box, so she sounds a bit throaty when we're outside. But allegedly, she sounds all right as we're driving. So let's give it a go. To me, that sounds fantastic. So it's time, got the belt on, we're going to head on out. Guys, I've been out driving this car now for a few minutes, so I'm still getting my head around the gearbox, and in a really weird way, like because I can't see the gears on the gear stick, I feel like I'm almost like, oh, where's third? Anyway, the first impression that I got when I came out of this car was that it was so smooth. So I didn't realise at first that it had power steering, and my God, it is so light. It's, for those of you like me who aren't used to power steering, it's very bizarre. It's kind of like when you drive on ice. I feel just every small movement seems to have an effect. So it's very bizarre. But one of the interesting things about this car is that the steering, suspension and brakes are all connected on one system, and I feel like that smooth steering really is coming across in the suspension as well. So we went over some bumps earlier, and again it just glided over them. It is gorgeous. I've never driven anything like this before, and I'm actually quite impressed. It's a very nice car. One of the interesting aspects of this car is that it was sold on reliability. Now, every time I use French in a video, you guys always laugh at me and you talk about my pronunciation. So I'm not doing that today. I'm only going to tell you what it translated as. So they had 2 marketing campaigns for this car. Now, the first one translated over from French, and it translated into I love, I love, I love. And it was that idea that you fell in love with the Citroen BX. You loved it. It was just something that you couldn't live without. So it's really playing into that. It wasn't just a car, it was something you really loved and you really adored, building up that aspirational profile of the car. And the other campaign that they went out with on both domestic and continental was that, I believe the wording was loves driving, hates garages. Now, it's quite a simple message, it's quite powerful, and the idea was that the owner of the car wouldn't need to be worrying about expensive bills, they wouldn't need to be worrying about reliability, because these cars were reliable. That is how they were benchmarked. Now, part of that is because of who they were aimed at. So they weren't just aimed at your middle of the road, like for example the Maestro over here. This was aimed at the kind of customer that might have bought a Montego, the businessman, the man who's doing a lot of miles, the people that need to travel quite far but love a bit of comfort and luxury. And I could honestly say that I think they've hit the mark really well with it, because it is comfortable, it's very, very comfortable, and in fact I felt that when I had to adjust the seat. So I'm going to try and show you when I've stopped, but the seat doesn't adjust like it does in my car, where you just adjust the back. The whole seat kind of tips forward, so if you imagine it's kind of like on like an L shape, and it tips like this. So actually it's quite comfortable, because as you know, if you've watched any of my previous videos, I don't enjoy sitting right back here. I like quite an upright seating position, and so when I came to adjust the seat, I found that, and it's quite a roomy car as well, without taking up too much space, and it's quite a light car. So all in all, it is actually a very pleasurable car to be out in. And yeah, I think the Citroen BX has won me over. So at the risk of having the mickey taken, j'aime la Citroen. One of the very interesting things that I like to do when I like to look into cars and try different things out is talk to you about parts availability. So there were, I think, nearly 2.5 million Citroen BXs made across the lifespan of the car, and there aren't that many left. And in fact, Jordan, who owns this car, was saying to me that he has, so I know Jordan because he's got a Morris Minor, and obviously I've got a Morris Minor, so we've known each other a long time, and he was saying to me that you never really see a Citroen BX really anymore. It's a car that was once seemed to be everywhere, but you don't see them so much, and he gets far more attention in this than he does the Morris Minor, because people are saying, well, you know, you just don't see it anymore. And so with that, I said to Jordan, like, what's your parts availability like? And he said it's not actually too bad. It's not the best. It's not, I mean, look, we've been spoiled, Morris Minors, you can get everything, but he said it's not that bad in this. So he can get, there's a company in the UK, because I said, are you having to order from France? And he said no, in fact, you can get most things from a company, I think they're called Chevronics in the UK. They seem to be able to try and get you most things. So yeah, so I think it's a shame really that there aren't more of these. It's a comfortable car. I think that it would be a great first car for a lot of people as well, because it is very light, it's easy to drive. Again, you've got one of my favourite plus points, which is great visibility as you're out on the road. It's pretty quiet as well, to say it hasn't got a back box, and it's, in my opinion, it's smashing. I'm really impressed. I get a lot of comments, and I've been getting a lot of them recently on the 80s and 90s cars that I've been doing, especially things like the Kia Pride and actually the Nova as well, that people have been saying, well, these cars are classic cars. But I'm here to tell you, actually they are. And I do get it. I really, really empathise, because when I first started driving, I mean, now the Metro is seen as a classic, and that took me a lot to get my head around. And I think that some of you guys probably look at these cars and you're like, hey, I was 30 when that came out. That car's like new to me. I get it. I had a Metro when they were £200 out the back of the newspaper, and nobody cared about them, and they were just like an old banger. So I do get it. But the face of classic cars and the world of classic cars is changing quite rapidly. So I remember when I first got my Morris Minor, it was your staple kind of your 50s, 60s and sub 70s cars that were really considered your classics, and you know, some of your iconic 80s Fords and stuff. But nowadays it seems to be like the underdogs and the forgotten cars seem to be emerging as, you know, fun, quirky little choices in the classic car community. And one of the great things is that by being on this cusp of greatness now, that we are in the position that people were in maybe 10, 15 years ago, when you could pick up what is now an iconic classic, that you could pick up a future iconic classic like this for absolute peanuts. I mean, these cars are so cheap, you can go on eBay and find all sorts of 80s and 90s Citroens that you can put on a classic car policy for almost next to nothing. And I think it's a great step forward, especially if you're a young person that would like to be in the classic car scene but you're not really sure how to break into it. Things like this are really redefining what constitutes a classic car, and for one, personally, I couldn't be happier, because I honestly thought a few years ago, in fact it was before we started to see a lot of growth in big clubs like Young Retro Motor Club and stuff online, I genuinely thought that classic cars were going to end up just being shows full of dwindling numbers of people with older and older cars. So I'm actually quite overjoyed really to start seeing stuff like this at classic car shows, and really welcome it as well, because I think that if you just fixate on the idea that anything made after 1979 isn't a classic car, then I think we're missing out on a whole host of potential new and exciting cars that we could be seeing at shows. And yeah, I love it, and I think it's great as well, because you can drive it every day and actually enjoy it and keep up with modern traffic. One of the things that I like to talk about when I do these videos with you guys is how many were made, what's going on, like are there a lot left, like what are people doing. So there were just under 2.5 million Citroen BXs made, and that's kind of including France. I think that's all over the world. So they made them in France and Spain, and I believe they were made in Rennes in France, and another factory, and then they were made in Spain as well. So all the Citroen BXs that you see in the UK have been imported. And so one of the first questions I had for Jordan was, what are you doing about parts? Are you having to ship stuff in? And he said no. He said there's a company in the UK called Chevronics, and Chevronics pretty much sort out all the bits that he needs. But he said, you know, the parts availability isn't as good as we're used to with the Morris Minor, but look, we're spoiled with the Morris Minor because you can get pretty much everything you need if you've got an older one. And we were talking as well about the eye-catching appeal of the Citroen BX. So Jordan said to me that he has had no end of attention in the BX, that people always stop, say hi, take photos and wave. And with the Morris Minor, people are like, it's just another Morris Minor. So again, that's quite nice really, because he's out driving something that's a bit different, it's a bit exciting, and it's quite, you know, from the outside, it is quite cool. I mean, the designer that designed this designed, I think he designed the Lancia Stratos, I believe. So you know, it's come from it's been designed by somebody with very good credentials. So it is. I mean, it's a car that you stop and you do look at. It's not necessarily what I would always go for. It's a little bit newer than what I usually go for. But you know, for me, I would totally agree with Jordan and the people that stop him. It has got that appeal of being eye-catching, and yeah, it's. I think it's shaping up to be a test drive I'm very much enjoying. One of the things that I like to talk about when I do these videos are things like owners clubs and support support. So I was talking to Jordan and I said, have you been involved with the Owners Club? What have you done? And he said that the Facebook group, so they've got a Facebook group, as a lot of car clubs now do, and car clubs that aren't, I think, why aren't you making one? It's free and it's a great way to attract new members. And Jordan was saying that one of the interesting things that's happened this year, and I should have known this actually because I have watched the video, was the Citroen Centenary in France. And if you haven't watched it, it's something that Ian went to, Ian from Hubnut. So just check out his channel, Hubnut. He did plenty of videos on it. It looked really exciting and I was really jealous that he had such a nice time. And they do have various events. You've got the BX Club, the Citroen clubs in the UK. So if it was something that you were considering, at least you know that you would have some support there. And I think it's such an important thing to always talk about, owners clubs and things, because people do this sort of stuff in their own time and they do it for free as well, just because they really like the cars. And yeah, it's shaping up to be a good all-rounder, this car. It's nice to drive, it's very comfortable, it's pretty quiet, and it sounds like you can get most of the parts. I mean, what's not to love? One of the things that you guys always feed back to me is that you love when I feature affordable classics, and this is a very affordable classic. So Jordan paid less than £1,000 for it, and this is actually quite a good time to mention this is now for sale actually, because he's got his eye on something else. So this was less than £1,000 to buy. Now, a lot of people say that they can't get into classics because they're so expensive. Well, why don't you consider a Citroen BX? Because this is a very nice car, and as I've been cruising along, it's quick off the lights. With the power steering, it's so light on the handling, it's actually a bit weird. I imagine if you've learned to drive, and especially if you're looking for your first classic and you've learned to drive in a modern car, this is probably quite a good idea for you. Because for me, I've not had power steering for, gosh, well, not since I learned to drive. So for me, this steering is a bit like, whoa, like, it's just, it feels so light. But for you guys, if it's your first classic, I would definitely say consider one of these, because it's relatively cheap in terms of the world of classics. It's not something that you're going to struggle to get insured, because a lot of classic car policies now, as long as it's over 20-25 years old, you can put it on a classic policy, which means that you dodge things like the kind of taxes that they're putting on people. I mean, people are paying thousands of pounds to insure these cars that they've got on finance. Look at a Citroen BX, it's great, it's under £1,000, so your starting price is cheap, your insurance is going to be cheaper because you can put it on a classic car policy, and it's nice to drive. And I don't think it's so far removed from modern car driving that you couldn't quite easily adapt to it. I think it's a great decision personally. You guys may have noticed this is a well-loved example, and a lot of people contact me and say, oh, I'd love to see your car, I'd love to see my car when I drive a classic, but I don't think it's shiny enough. And honestly guys, I'm a daily driver myself. I know what a classic looks like when you've been driving it for ages, and they can end up looking quite well loved and maybe a little bit, you know, rough around the edges. But for me, that's the charm, and it's part of the memories, your little dings, your little scrapes, little things on the car. And I'm a firm believer in that if you're enjoying the car and you don't need it to look like a show car and you just want to enjoy it, that's okay too, because I think this is the nice thing about some of these cheaper classics, is that they can just be used and enjoyed. And Jordan certainly enjoyed this, but he's done all the work that you need to do to keep on top of it. So coming back to that idea of loves driving, hates garages, Jordan said this car has actually been very reliable for him. So he's had a couple of little niggles with the suspension and the pump and stuff, but by and large the car has been very reliable for him, and he's done a lot of mileage. And in fact, today we've met up in Leeds for our review, but Jordan doesn't even live in Leeds, he lives in Southampton. So he's come all the way from Southampton up to Leeds to visit a friend and his dad, and we teed up the review, and I said, how is it run? And he said it has been faultless. He said he was gliding up motorways at 70 miles an hour, it was going smoothly, it was a great car to drive, and quite frankly, you can't ask for more than that. It's almost time for me to hand the keys back to this very fun Citroen BX, which means that it's kind of my time to tell you, would I recommend the car, would I not? And do you know what? Yes, I would, because I think it's a quirky classic. it's cheap, which means that no matter who you are, no matter what your income, I think the Citroen BX could be accessible to you. The parts aren't necessarily the most expensive. It's got a pretty good owners club, and I think it's one of those cars that right now is on the cusp of becoming an iconic classic, but I think give it time, maybe give it 5-10 years, and I think this will probably be quite a highly sought after car, and I think the prices will end up going through the roof. So if you do get offered one, and bear in mind this one is for sale, I think go for one, because you know what, it's been a fun little drive. I've not found the gearbox the easiest, but I think it's certainly something you could learn to live with and you could learn to love, and yeah, it's a great car, so I would give it a solid 10 out of 10. Guys, it's the saddest bit of the video for me. It's where I say goodbye to you, and I've had such a laugh in this Citroen BX. It's been so much fun. Like, I've really enjoyed driving it. It's been pretty nippy, and it's been something totally different for me. I've wanted to get my hands on the keys to this car for absolutely ages, because Jordan brought it to the Morris Minor National Rally. Neither of us turned up in a Morris Minor this year, and I was like, oh please, I'd love to drive it, and we just ran out of time. So it's so nice today that I've been able to take it out, share it with you guys, and even better, it's been a sunny day, so I've been able to really enjoy it for all that it's worth. Now, I hope you've really enjoyed this video as much as I've enjoyed driving the Citroen. It's been such a laugh, it's been a really great day, and it's certainly put a smile on my face. So if you've enjoyed it, don't forget to hit like. If you've got any comments, pop them in the comments section below, and of course, if you haven't subscribed already, make sure that you do, because new classic car videos go up every Wednesday and every Sunday. But until next time, take care and drive safely.